Did you know that one of the most destructive earthquakes in all of history happened here in Portugal? In this video, I'll tell you all you need to know about earthquakes and natural disasters in the country. Hi guys, this is Mariano and welcome to my channel. So let's start off by the most concerning natural disaster, earthquakes. Before you get scared about this, I have to tell you that Portugal is not a country of high seismicity where you get earthquakes often like you would do in California or in places like Chile. That being said, the most dystopic natural disaster that ever happened in Portugal was the 1755 Lisbon earthquake. This drastic event took place on the morning of November 1st of 1755 and it's believed to have a magnitude 9 in the Richter scale with an epicenter on the Atlantic coast near the limits between the European and African plates. Lisbon was not even the actual epicenter of the quake, but because it was the nearest city, we know it as the Lisbon earthquake. The earthquake in itself destroyed a third part of the city, killing thousands of people. And to make it even worse, because it was All Saints' Day, many candles were lit up in houses and in churches, and after the quake it created massive fires that ran across the city. To have even a worse situation, because the epicenter was on the Atlantic, minutes later of the quake, big tsunami waves hit all the coast of Portugal, devastating the coastal side of Lisbon. Now, right after this tragedy, it was the Marquês de Pombal, the one who rebuilt the destroyed part of the city using its Pombalin-style architecture that you see today in the Baixo of Lisbon, which were one of the first earthquake-resistant buildings to be ever built. Since then, Portugal designed several building codes that have been regularly updated and monitored by the European Union. These codes have different requirements depending on what part of the country do you live, which have different seismic hazards. Fortunately, these codes proved to be efficient with the time, as after some earthquake that happened decades ago, there were no reports of building damages. Now here you'll have a map of the different seismic hazards depending on the region. Here you will see that Madeira, the Azores, Lisbon, Setúbal, and the Algarve have the highest seismic hazard, while the northern side of Portugal remains the safest. After saying all of this, I have to say that the only region where you can expect regular earthquakes of a low intensity is the Azores or Madeira Islands, because they lie nearby the limit between the European and African tectonic plates. There are other smaller fault lines in continental Portugal, although the risk of those is very low. And experts say that because the 1755 earthquake released so much energy, it's very unlikely that a bigger event would happen in the next hundreds or even thousands of years. Moving on to the second natural disaster, tornadoes. Yes, this phenomenon can occur eventually in Portugal, although it is very rare and typically of a very low intensity. In accordance to the Portuguese Sea and Atmosphere Institute, up to January 1st, 2020, a grand total of 184 tornadoes were ever reported in the country, although most of them would occur during the months of March, November, and December. Keep in mind that because this phenomenon is very rare and typically of low intensity, no damages were reported in the last decades due to a tornado. Also consider that because homes in Portugal are made of brick and stone, typically the buildings here are of a much higher resistance than, let's say, houses in the US where wooden constructions prevail. Now you have to know that especially during the winter months, another phenomenon that may occur is the flooding caused by heavy rains. In areas at risk remain places near rivers, the coast, or lowlands, but still I would suggest you check in your local council, as typically they have flooding hazard maps where you can see if the place you live is vulnerable. On December 2022, for example, there were plenty of heavy rainfalls that unfortunately caused the loss of many lives due to the floodings in many villages across the country and even in Lisbon in places like Algés. In addition, if you're thinking of living in the Azores or Madeira, you should know that landslides caused by floodings can occur. Now, moving on to another natural disaster, one thing you should definitely consider in Portugal, especially if you're looking at rural places, is the wildfires. Unfortunately, this phenomenon has become common every summer, especially on small villages and rural sites of the country. I have to say that there's an alert system that will let you know if there's a fire nearby and send you a notification to your phone, and also that the Portuguese firefighters are some of the best in all the world. But still, some fires may get out of control from time to time. Last but not least, we move to the last natural disaster, volcanoes. Before you get scared, there are no active volcanoes in continental Portugal, but if you want to live in Madeira or Azores Islands, you should know that between the two archipelagos there are 7 active volcanoes. Just to be clear, there's no imminent risk of an eruption or anything related, but you should know that the hazard exists. So there you have it, guys. Those were the main natural disasters you could expect in Portugal. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and make a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.